genetics, autoimmune diseases, and families. Let's discuss it. Hello, this is Dr. Siddharth Amber, physician here at Chicago Arthritis and Regenerative Medicine, expert in rheumatology and regenerative medicine. Common question that I hear from patients, as well as on social media, is how do genetics work when it comes to autoimmune conditions? And this typically comes up when patients are asking, why do they have an autoimmune condition? And maybe other family members either don't have anything that they know of or different autoimmune issues. Or sometimes people get worried about autoimmune conditions that their kids could have if they already have one. So there's a lot of nuance and complexity to this question. The first part about this is understand that genetics and autoimmune conditions is complicated. We have a certain understanding, but we don't have a complete understanding. So we do understand that most, if not all, autoimmune conditions are polygenic. What that means is that there's multiple possible genes that are involved here. Important because amongst families, you likely share some genes and genetics. You don't necessarily share all the same genetics. And that could influence what are your risks or other family members' risks when it comes to developing an autoimmune issue. Or, within the same family, something that you'll commonly see is that you may have one person that has rheumatoid arthritis, another one that has psoriatic arthritis. The patient that I'm seeing may have lupus. You'll see a different distribution of conditions. And it could be because there's multiple different genes involved. And depending on the nature or which genes that you have versus another family member has, as well as how it gets expressed, that can affect differently how a person's autoimmune condition gets expressed. On top of that, understand that there's this concept of epigenetics. What that means is that the environment affects how our genes get expressed and what they do. So, as an example, what we understand about autoimmune issues is that genetics adds risk factors to the potential development of an autoimmune condition, but it is not a 100% chance that you'll develop something just because you have a genetic profile. It's just adding risk factors to your potential development of an autoimmune condition. We know that there are environmental factors that can trigger the development of an autoimmune condition and increase your risk of developing an autoimmune condition. That's what we mean when we talk about epigenetics. So some common potential environmental factors that are either hypothesized or thought to influence autoimmune conditions can include things like, are you exposed to certain common viruses that most people get exposed to? That can sometimes trigger the eventual development of an autoimmune issue. We think that other common environmental factors may also influence that. That could be certain chemicals, products that most of us tend to get exposed to in the world that we live in. It could be if you've had other medical issues that can then increase your chance of developing an autoimmune issue. It could be if you're dealing with chronic stress. It could be if you're dealing with chronic poor sleep. There's so many different factors. That's sometimes a challenge. But what we do understand is that genetics is a piece of the puzzle. It is not the entire thing. So even if your child has a similar genetic profile as you, it doesn't mean that they are absolutely destined to develop the same medical conditions that you have, because there are many other factors besides just your genes. Outside of some of those environmental factors, there are also other aspects of your own body and your health that can also influence the development of autoimmune conditions. For example, we know that women tend to be more prone to most or more autoimmune conditions. We also know that pregnancy seems to influence or worsen certain autoimmune conditions and actually seems to calm down certain other ones. So there's likely a contribution from our endocrine or hormone system that influences how our immune system reacts and possibly also how our genes get expressed as well. And then the other aspect to this is that, when we talk about the gut microbiome, we're talking about a large part of your immune system is actually in your gut as well. So what you eat and consume and expose your gut to is actually what your immune system is getting exposed to as well. That's important because you may have a genetic risk for developing an autoimmune issue. And while we don't understand all the potential triggers, when you think about what are the things that you can do to hopefully reduce your risk or maybe help reduce other family members' risks, some of these are just common sense things. Some of these are, can you try to eat more healthy? Can you try to reduce your exposure to overly processed foods? Obviously, avoid certain toxins like smoking or too much alcohol. Even if some of the links that some of these exogenous products have towards developing autoimmunity may be mild or limited, it still makes sense to try to optimize your overall health so that you're limiting your chance of developing a trigger to an autoimmune condition. The other and last part about this I want to mention is that genetics is not destiny, right? So talking about how the decisions you make for what you consume, how you live, can affect how your genes get expressed, and thus also your chance of autoimmune issues. Also understand that you likely have genes that are also protective as well. And so within the same family, there may be similar risk factors across the board based on genetic profile, but some people may have certain genetics that also help to reduce some of those risks as well. So genetics, autoimmune history, and family kind of destiny, these are relatively complex. I think the things that you can do best are be aware of what your risks are. That's not only from genetics, but also just looking at your family history. And then think about lifestyle-wise, the ways that you can help to put yourself in the best position to keep yourself healthy long-term. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a good day and live well. Bye-bye.